schedule. And to talk about your Cincinnati Reds, we have the Hall of Famer, Hal McCoy, hanging out with us here today. Hal, good afternoon. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Justin. How are you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. I was laughing at a post you had on Facebook about a week or two ago as the Reds were ramping up and within the playoff race. You and your wife just got back from a vacation, but you said it was you didn't anticipate there being much to write about with the Reds at this point of the season, but you went on a vacation and you didn't miss much.
I followed them while I was on vacation, but yeah, who knew that they would be still relevant with 2 games left in the season? I mean, like everybody else in the country, I predicted that they would lose 100 games again and finish last. So I'm red-faced.
So with that, and I don't defend this management or front office very often, and I'm not really doing it now, but I keep seeing a lot of, and especially on social media with Sonny Gray, they keep using him as a name of, oh, the Reds, I can't believe they moved on from him. I can't believe they moved on from him. They could have really used him. I'm not defending the front office's decision to move on from him technically, Hal, but at the same time, like what you just said, you expected him as well as myself and many that this team was supposed to lose 100 games. They weren't positioned or constructed in the offseason to be competitive or to win a lot of games. It's, baseball, you have a good feel for how that works. It's not as if they expected them to be competitive or 500 or within 2 games of a wild card spot here in September heading into October. So I don't mind that they moved on from Sonny Gray, but there's so many fans out there that are like, it was such a dumb decision to move on from him. Again, not defending him, but it would not have made sense to continue paying high leverage pitchers like that type of money to be on a team losing 100 games.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, there's talk about bringing him back. I don't know if that would happen. I don't know if the Reds have the funds to do that, but he sure would be good in that rotation with the young players or the young pitchers that they do have. But the return they got from Sonny Gray would help them get where they are today. So I have no qualms about them moving on from him.
Obviously, I don't even know if the front office expected them to be as competitive as what they were. I do think that the Reds being as competitive as what they were and being in the playoff picture, Hal, if they were the 100-loss team that we expected them to be, would they have billed this as the final season of Joey Votto? Would they have been able to to brand this season as a farewell for him? Do you feel like that kind of got in the way of that? Because it seemed like mixed messaging all year long. I don't know what's next for Joey Votto and the Cincinnati Reds, but is there a chance that we just witnessed the final run of Joey Votto in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's no room for him. What they're going to do with him? I mean, Christian Encarnacion Strand is a first baseman, and why would they take time away from him? He shows what he can do along with all the rest of those rookies they brought up. I mean, they brought up like 7 rookies and played them, and I'm sure they did a whole lot better than what even the front office expected. I thought they probably thought they would bring them up and get them experience and probably be lucky to finish 500 and get these guys produced and show that they can play the game. And now what are they going to do with Joey Votto? I mean, if it was a heart decision, yeah, they would bring him back because he's so popular with the fans and face of the franchise and all that. But baseball is a business, and the business says that it's time for them to move on from Joey Votto.
And the other thing, Hal, it's one thing if he's producing. I mean, but he was a hair above 200 for most of the season. I mean, he struck out a ton, and I guess strikeouts aren't as big a deal in today's game as what they used to be. But that average was not good. It's not like he was producing at a high level either. I know he had some major highlights throughout the year, especially in that series against the Braves where he was, hitting the ball to the ballpark along with Ellie De La Cruz and being, kind of mixing that youth with experience, and it was kind of fun to watch. But overall, he wasn't producing. So it's not as if we're watching a Joey Votto that's still producing for the Reds to close it out. I will say this. It's not that I'm not anti Joey Votto, but I do wish there was a way that he could have got a better send out, and not necessarily just in the playoffs. But the reason I asked earlier about the wrench in the plans, I feel like they could have branded the 100-loss team as the final season for Joey Votto to at least have a feel-good portion of the season. That the playoff race got in the way of that, and I just feel like he had an unceremonious exit, if you will. And heck, even in his final game, Hal, getting tossed. Didn't even finish the final game. He got tossed to close it out potentially.
Yeah, you're exactly right. They could have marketed it, as his farewell season and got a send off in all the cities they went to, and a better send off in Cincinnati. But I'm not sure that they are certain what they're going to do yet. Joy has not made any comment about it being his last year, and the team hasn't said anything. I kind of think they've indicated they're not going to pick up the $20 million option, but they could still buy him out for the $7 million and then renegotiate and bring him back if that's what they want to do. But I don't see that happening, and I think it would be a big mistake. I mean, he's 40 years old, and as you pointed out, his production in the last 2 or 3 years has gone way down, and he's kind of when they put him in the middle of the lineup, he's pretty much an automatic out anymore, and kind of disrupts things. And I just don't think there's a place for him.
David Bell, is he your National League Manager of the Year? How do you see that shaking out?
Well, probably if they'd have made the playoffs, I think he might have been the National League Player or Manager of the Year. I mean, he's taken a lot of heat on social media for not getting him in the playoffs, but man, look what he did. I mean, they used 65 players, they used 40 different pitchers, and he kept them in the race. I know he got criticized for overusing the bullpen, but he had no choice. The pitchers were not getting him out of the fourth and fifth inning, so he had to use them. I think with what he had to work with and bringing along those rookies and mix and matching the lineups, I think he did one heck of a job, and worthy of mention as Manager of the Year. But he probably won't get it. It'll probably be somebody like Craig Counsell or the Arizona manager or somebody like that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Nonetheless, I know when they announced the extension, it was a late Friday night. I remember I was at UD Arena for the TBT, and it was almost like a news dump. They were playing, in Los Angeles against the Dodgers, and it was like, what is happening? Like usually you announce that, at a peak time early in the week where it can get a lot of pub and everything. It was just kind of an odd time. And of course, they set them up to look bad, in my opinion, because you knew if the Reds couldn't sustain what they did in June, they were going to blame him for it. And that's kind of what the critics have done. Obviously, he's coming back next year, so there's no question mark as who the manager in 2024 is going to be. But there's still a lot of question marks about how the roster is going to shape out. How I love the potential rotation if these guys stay healthy. I love Hunter Green, Graham Ashcraft, Andrew Abbott, developed into a star for them, of course, and Nick Lodolo. I mean, obviously there's room. You talked about potentially, going after Sonny Gray again. It'll be interesting to see how aggressive the Reds are in the pitching market. How aggressive do you think they'll be in the pitching market? And is there a shot that any of these guys end up being moved to the bullpen? I've read some things about Nick Lodolo potentially being a target that he can't stay healthy. He can't seem to handle a full 162 game load. He'd be an excellent lefty to come out of the bullpen. How do you see that shaping up, at least in the immediate future, being 2024?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they're going to have the Joey Votto's $25 million off the payroll. They're no longer going to have to pay the $17 million or they had to pay Mike Moustakas to play for another team. So the payroll is going to move down around $54 million, and I think they have said that they're going to try to make it $100 million next year. So they have some flexibility there. I would like to see them go out and get an established veteran pitcher to help all those young pitchers, to be a mentor for those young pitchers. And I think that would be a good idea to move somebody to the bullpen. I would kind of think about moving Hunter Green to the bullpen. He's got the stuff to be a bullpen guy, come in and throw hard for an inning or two. He just doesn't seem to be able to stay healthy, and he doesn't seem to be able to consistently get out of the fourth or fifth inning. So with all the starting pitching candidates they do have, and that includes Brandon Williamson among the guys that you named, they actually have too many candidates for that starting rotation, and something has to give. And I think one or two of those guys might end up in the bullpen, and for sure the bullpen needs help.
Yeah, and again, with the way baseball's managed today, and especially with the way David Bell manages, in your opinion, Hal, is it more important to have your heavy horses in the bullpen versus the rotation? I think you know what I'm trying to ask. Is it better off to have stronger horses in the bullpen versus the rotation, especially with how the game's managed today, and especially with the way David Bell manages? It would be. I mean, it would be wild to see Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo in there. We kind of saw that in the previous rebuild, where I remember when Garrett was brought up, and why am I drawing a blank on there was a few. There was a few names in gray that were brought up that I was like surprised that they were being pushed as starters, but they ended up being moved to the bullpen. It'll be interesting to see the decisions they make as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's not only David Bell; it's every manager you see. It's I don't care if a guy comes in and goes 1, 2, 3 and strikes out the side. He's done. It's the next man up. It's inning after inning after inning. So, yeah, it would behoove a team to be very, very strong in the bullpen. And if you notice, all the good teams right now have an exceptionally strong bullpen. That's where the game has gone to.
The other thing too that's interesting is we know how important pitching is. There was enough promise from what we saw from a lot of the rookies and this lineup. Now, I know the run production kind of slowed down, especially as the season went on, which you should expect when you have a lot of these guys who have never played a full 162 game season. It was obvious that we were going to see Ellie kind of take a step back, but there was some question mark. I mean, Ellie didn't just go on some slumps, Hal. He went on some Joey Votto type slumps. Is there any concern about maybe us overreacting to his hot June and his hot start? I mean, your thoughts on Ellie moving forward, because we saw the highs of highs. We also saw some lows of lows, which is what you expect from a rookie. But your overall vibe of the future of Ellie De La Cruz as the face of the franchise moving forward, where are we at within that progression?
Well, we've seen the high points of him and what he can do. And people sometimes tend to forget he's only 21 years old and doesn't have a whole lot of professional experience. With the talent he has, I think he's going to adjust, and I think he's going to be a superstar. So I don't think people have overreacted. He just has to learn to lay off those low inside breaking pitches. That's something that I think that he will overcome.
Hall of Famer Hal McCoy, awesome enough to give us some time here this afternoon. Send us out with this. You know the rhythm of how this organization operates. You've been covering this team for decades and decades and decades, and I mean that respectfully, of course. You've covered this team for a minute, okay? And with that, you know how they operate, regardless of the ownership regime that's in place. A lot of fans believe that because of them being a year ahead of schedule, that means all of a sudden the money being spent will be moved up a year ahead of schedule. What's more likely to happen? Them adding just maybe a couple mid-level pieces to balance out what we saw this season, to give everyone another year to develop, with your Spencer Steers and with your, obviously, Matt McClains and Ellie De La Cruz and Encarnacion Strands and even the pitching side? Or do they go all in? Do they spend heavy money to complement the young pieces? I mean, you know how this team operates. You know the rhythm of how they flow. What do you think fans should be gearing up for as, once the postseason wraps up and free agency begins? Are fans going to be disappointed by the activity in the offseason, or is it just going to be kind of average?
I think it's going to be kind of average. I think they'll add a couple of mid-level pieces, as you mentioned. I don't think they're going to go all in. I think they're going to continue to develop those rookies and have another year of experience. And I think they're not going. I think their timetable was like 2026, and I think that's probably what they're shooting for. And maybe in a year or two, they will go all in if these kids continue to improve and show that they are major league players. I don't think they're going to go all in this offseason at all.
Now, I'm not saying, and again, based on how they operate, do you think that's the right decision? Because they could overreact to what we saw from some of these young guys this year. I mean, we saw Jonathan India take a step back in his second year. They could overreact, spend a ton of money to complement these guys, and then all of these guys have that sophomore slump, if you will, and then it looks like money wasted. I'm curious your thoughts on that. Is that the smart decision to let another year play out to see how these guys take that next step?
Yes, I think it is because, as you say, these kids were rookies, and you never know. Nothing is guaranteed in baseball. You don't know how they're going to perform next year. The league is going to adjust to them. Now they have, all the scouting reports on them, and it's going to be how they adjust and how they react next season. So I think it's wise to wait and see how things are progressing before they go all in.
All right, good stuff. The Hall of Famer Hal McCoy. Love talking Reds with you, Hal. But you don't just write and cover about the Cincinnati Reds. Are you still going to be working with Press Pros covering the Dayton Flyers coming up this season? Correct?
Absolutely, I love doing that, and I'm looking forward to the season.
I mean, that Ohio State exhibition matchup is already here in a few weeks. I mean, I know we're talking baseball playoffs and NFL season, college football, but college hoops is right around the corner. It feels kind of like a reset year for Dayton, not a rebuild, but like a reset. And I like the energy kind of around Deron Holmes. I'm pretty jacked about the college basketball season coming up.
Yeah, I think they've gone out and surrounded Deron Holmes with some real talent that we haven't seen yet, but all the reports are that they've brought in some real talent. So it should be very, very interesting. And I'm excited to see it.
Hal, you're the man, sir. We appreciate your time as always. You take care and have a great weekend.
Anytime for you, Justin. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right, good.